Rutger, this is not the first edition of the hackathon, but it is the first edition of an ethical deep dive. Why did you add this to the program?
As you've just learned, we thought it was very important to address these topics, but actually it started, the inspiration from it started at the Next Level conference we did last year. At the Next Level conference, we looked back with the ecosystem on past season, on past hackathon, what came out and what are the important topics that will take us into the next season. And the ethical questions were part of it already. Then Marleen appeared on Dutch national television and she put a big flag on ethics and what we are doing with the internet, I think. It was a moment where everybody who watched it and even slightly understands the internet had a lot of recognition with that issue. And then I had a conversation with Alexander Rinoy-Kan, and he was a super accelerator in our first hackathon. So who was at the first hackathon? Some people here as well? Yeah. So you all remember that. And ever since we keep in touch. And when we discussed the question, actually Alexander's question of what can we do about these big tech companies that are influencing us as individuals, as societies, our economies, what can we do? And then I said, that is exactly the thing we want to discuss at the ethical deep dive we would like to organize. We were also building a partnership with the Ministry of the Interior and looking at how we can use technology for the benefit of our society is, of course, on their plate as well. So there was a lot of enthusiasm to organize an ethical deep dive. And then I asked Alexander Rinoy-Kan, could we do it in the Dutch Senate? And he replied, I don't see any reason why not. So this is why we are here today, right? So I've written, you have some more questions probably, because I have long...
I always have questions, but do you have entire schemas right here? We're not going to go through all of those right now, right?
No.
Okay, okay. I have another question for you, indeed. Is it actually possible to influence how this works, because it's hardly possible to predict the future? This very Senate was built and instituted to at first serve the king, and then later on transformed, but maybe not as much. And it looks like the Googles and Facebooks nowadays are not even transformable anymore. So what do you think we can achieve?
It depends on how we collaborate. I think that's the key point. And it depends also on what questions we dare to ask. If this or that is normal, if it's still useful. So if we look at where we are in the stories we create, we were just told a story from the beginning of the industrial age and the industrial revolution. The question is, what kind of story are we in right now? What is pretty clear is that we are leaving a story behind of the past century, of what worked, what used to work.
What's the shortest version of that story?
The century of the self, I would say. If you don't know the documentary, look it up. Adam Curtis, BBC, absolutely brilliant. 4 hours of, yeah, good stuff there. It's a bit negative because we did a lot of collaboration in that century as well. But I think also articulated by Bowie very eloquently is that we found out that for even one fact there are like a multitude of truths, right? So the internet right now, I think, shows us that we live in fragmentation, connected. So I think it's important that we ask questions on how do we organize not only society itself, but I think we're now dealing also with the fabric of our society. And that's how we collaborate, how we live together, and how we have symbiosis with all the technology that's out there, with our biosphere, so to say. So I think there's a new story emerging where we include our biospherical awareness, where we include real connections, real relations. That when we talk about identity, not just as a transaction, but also as a relation, and that we take things from the absolute human point of view in ecosystems. And that's I think what we are discovering. And our credo at the Odyssey is we're discovering the future by building, and we are doing that together. It's not that some kind of institute cooks up stuff and that we just consume it. No, I think that has changed.
So we're basically moving towards the century of connectedness and relationships. Or relations, maybe.
Something in that direction. What we actually call this new story, we'll find out. We are all. I mean, it's amazing to see so many team captains here. It's amazing to see the partners here, and that the speakers think this is important to contribute their time, and that we can have actually this discussion here in our country. Openly, maybe even fierce and debate it. And then we can see how we can connect the different views and build with that.
All right. Makes sense so far, right? We're still here? Yes? Comfy seats? Yeah, okay. So, anything else in your diagrams that you need to get off your chest before we get started?
Yeah, I think it's about the seats. It's interesting to see so many guys in love seats. And therefore, I also hope we find a lot more of Athena on our way, in our story. It's apparently it's Women's Day, but
International Women's Day, even.
Women's Day, yeah. I'm not sure if we would need a day for that, but I do want to celebrate all the women in tech and that are entering the tech space, and yeah, we should really welcome that.
I think we do. Thank you very much, Rutger.